Hey everyone, this is Oren Conheim, and I am introducing a series today called An Imperfect Look at Every Best Supporting Actress Oscar Winner Ever. It's going to be very exhausting, but hopefully it'll be very illuminating and entertaining. I say imperfect because I don't know everything about film. I've, taken film classes, I've immersed myself in film culture, I've published articles about film, I have watched quite a bit of TCM, I've watched a lot of movies, read a lot of books, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of films I haven't seen, and I don't mind that at all. It would be very boring if I had seen every classic film ever made, and I have a feeling the audience doesn't too. So let's discuss, what we know and celebrate what we don't know and just riff off each. I also want to let you know about why I chose this category. I think a lot of fun is had in the supporting categories. I like scene stealers. I also think that it's interesting that a lot of these roles are kind of seen through the sort of male-centered characters, especially in the first few years. So it could be sister.
Summertime, and the living is easy.
1951 is Kim Hunter in Streetcar Named Desire. This is a landmark acting film. I think a lot of people have mentioned that seeing Marlon Brando in the movie Streetcar Named Desire have, inspired them acting-wise, and this is like one of the best performances ever, as well as all the supporting characters. Carl Malden and Vivian Leigh also won for this. I have not seen the film, but I have spent a lot of time in New Orleans, where the playwright Tennessee Williams wrote the movie, or the play that turned into the movie. I used to hang around the Hotel Monteleone where he wrote it. I used to bike on Elysian Fields, which is this sort of poor multicultural neighborhood where the movie is set. I know that there's probably some abuse in this film. I know that the character shouts Stella, and that's where you see the woman. And Kim Hunter plays the character Stella. I also saw Kim Hunter in the 1997 film Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, so she must have lived a long time. 1952 is Gloria Graeme for Bad and the Beautiful, and which I don't even know what that is. Gloria Graeme was also in 1952. She was in the film The Greatest Show on Earth, which, I have seen films in 1952, just not the right ones, and I've even seen films which Gloria Graeme was in. In that film, she was an elephant, like, model. She would stand beside the elephants and make the elephants look pretty or something. And it was definitely a very big budget, elaborate movie that was about traveling circus performers. It had a very big cast, and Gloria Graeme was very good in that movie. She even outacted the lead, Betty Hutton, who I think this was not one of Betty Hutton's best roles, where Jamie Stewart plays a guy who's like outrunning the law by dressing as a clown. It's kind of a weird but good role. And Gloria Graeme in The Bad and the Beautiful, again, let's just pretend no one's ever seen that film, so not behind the curve. Let's just pretend it burned down in a nitrate fire. So I haven't seen Bad and the Beautiful, but who can blame me? Gloria Graeme was also the subject of a 2017, I know that year, 2017 film, Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool, where she is portrayed by Annette Bening, and I believe she has a May-December romance with a younger fan. And I hear that's a very good movie. Supporting goes to Donna Reed from Here to Eternity. This is a film I have seen. It's one of my favorite films, possibly my favorite war film. It's a very slice of life film about military officers and, in some cases, their loved ones or the women they meet, and the friendships they form and the tensions they face with the antagonism they kind of face right before Pearl Harbor gets bombed by Hawaii. Donna Reed is a call girl. There are a lot of call girls who get nominated in these categories because it's just a very it's a part of contradictions, because like you're kind of on the lower rung of society and you have transactional sex, but sometimes there's empathy in your character, as there are in all people. So Donna Reed has a wholesome image. She was the sweet girl in It's a Wonderful Life. I think within a few years, she would be in the Donna Reed Show, which is a little bit like Leave It to Beaver, where she is the wholesome wife again. So this was a film in which she sort of played against type. It was also a film in which Deborah Kerr, one of the other lead characters in the film, played against type a bit too. But in reality, this film, I don't think she's really edgy or dark or anything. She's an extremely empathetic, very pleasant woman who just happens to be a call girl, and I think it's definitely a very upending of our societal expectation of what that role would be. I think it's definitely one of my favorite performances. It made me really want to see if Donald Reed was in a movie. I'm going to watch that,
Diamonds are forever.
1954, it is going to be Eva Marie Saint for On the Waterfront. There's a hint of tragedy, a bittersweetness, when I say that Eva Marie Saint is still alive, because the last time I noticed someone was still alive, like Celeste Holm or Theodore Beitel or whatever, or James Caan. They die immediately after, so fingers crossed she's still alive. A lot of the greats have died, but she is a mainstay on those like TCM channels and the TCM cruise. I remember she did the TCM cruise with Betty Hutton. I remember they showed some footage of that. It was a really great actress in On the Waterfront, but I did not see that movie, unfortunately, and that's probably that movie is in the top 10 movies of all time by the American Film Institute, which was a pretty influential list when it came out. Eva Marie Saint was also in North by Northwest, one of Hitchcock's greatest films, and it was a film that inspired the producers of the Bond series to think that Ian Fleming's novels could be, made into really great, profitable movies. So in a way, she's kind of the prototype for the first Bond girl.
See what's become.
1955 is Jo Van Fleet of East of Eden. Jo Van Fleet is one of those people, just like actually On the Waterfront is another Elia Kazan film. She was drawn from the Actors Studio, which was some legendary, the place that Marlon Brando and tons of other people went to, and Carl Malden and whoever else. So that's like a tradition, and Elia Kazan won lots of Oscars for his actors, including this one for East of Eden. East of Eden is known for launching James Dean's, for being one of 3 films, I don't know if it's his first, but it's one of 3 films that James Dean was in. James Dean was like a big idol. He was like a cool guy, like the Fonz and Happy Days. He set a new standard for coolness. But I mean, also part of his legend was realistically because he died at the age of 24 from a motorcycle crash. So, well, that's a good way to go if you want to help your legend. In this film is a very interesting film. I like a lot. It is an allegory for like the Garden of Eden and like Abel and Cain, where there's like a religious dad, and James Dean is one of 2 brothers who is kind of pushed against each other. So James Dean's like the bad brother, but there's room for him to turn good at the end. And their mother, the mother of these 2 boys, is played by a brothel owner named Kate, who is the Jo Van Fleet character. And she's more allegorical than, a real person. And there's also this sort of California geography thing where there's like one blue-collar town where it's all dirty and grungy, and one town that's like pure where everyone does agriculture, and it's a very heavy-handed metaphor for the Garden of Eden and the evil outside of it. But I really kind of like the metaphorical aspect. Jo Van Fleet doesn't have a lot of screen time here, so I have to deduct her some points there.
I had to go. Oh, na 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 na. Havana, ooh, na na.
1956 is Dorothy Malone for Ridden on the Wind. This is a film by Douglas Sirk, who really took the family drama and infused it with kind of an X rating, very edgy flavor that really he's in his own genre, and like along with like film noir and like the Western, like every mid-20th century film class should include a Douglas Sirk film, in my opinion. In this film alone, there's alcoholism, there's impotence, there's domestic violence, there's spouses on different ends of the class divide, there's daddy issues, there's slut-shaming, there's a humongous issue of the 1950s is explored here, which is dancing so sexy that it literally kills your parents. That was an actual scene that happens in this movie. Basically, the plot is it's a love rectangle between an oil heir, a demure city girl, the oil heir's poor friend who's a geologist, and our Oscar winner Dorothy Malone is the oil heiress who has been long crushing on the geologist, and she deals with the unrequited love by being a nymphomaniac. That's basically another way of saying sex positive. She's very sex positive. I didn't even come up with the word nymphomaniac. I believe that they actually say that in the script. And they use the word tramp, which is example of why this is like a very X-rated film. So, because this is she has a very sexy, out there role from the 1950s, she really stands out. And that's one way to win an Oscar. You got a check mark for sort of, being very showy and flashy. At the same time, she has a really strong narrative arc. She shows vulnerability, she changes her mind, she changes over the course of the film. This is a film about people either growing with the times or not growing with the times. And she also lived to be in her mid-90s, so she only died 3 or 4 years ago. So good job on her on living so long. 1957 is Miyoshi Umeki for Sayonara. She is the only East Asian actor or actress to win an Oscar until that record was broken in 2020 with the film Minari. But at that point, they were just doing everything they can to not give Oscars to white people. So I'm not sure if that counts as much as 1957. This is a film about the real-life phenomenon of American soldiers who married Japanese women after the war. It's a cross-racial romance. Miyoshi Umeki later starred in Flower Drum Song, which I have seen, which is the only musical in the classic era to have an all-Asian cast that's set in San Francisco. There's a humongous irony here if you're rooting for Asian American actors, is that Miyoshi Umeki's co-star Red Button won the supporting actress this year. And Red Buttons won it over Sessue Hayakawa of Bridge on the River Kwai, who was absolutely excellent, and also is such a revered, awesome figure who acted all the way back to the silent era. And the thing is, Red Buttons wasn't even an actor. I mean, at least according to Wikipedia, he's first listed as a stand-up comic. So if he was just sticking to stand-up comedy, Sessue Hayakawa could have had the honor of best first Asian actor to win. '57 is Wendy Hiller in Separate Tables. It is a film set in a seaside inn in England just after World War II, and it is all about people sitting in separate tables. They show a lot of shots about the separate tables. They even title drop the separate tables in the script several times. And I think the moral of the story is all about how if you're a group of strangers, you shouldn't sit at separate tables. You should sit with strangers and get to know one another, which I happen to believe is true in real life, because if not, then people are gonna gossip and form the worst opinions about each other, which is exactly what happens in this movie. The main plot revolves around this major who does something sexually tawdry in a theater because of the Hays Code, which censored a lot of stuff. We really don't know exactly what it is. And he also embellishes his war record, and this very Puritan kind of villain of the movie is like, we have to shun this person, we have to expel him, we can't have this riffraff, because these are all kind of English upper class people. And maybe another moral is don't act too British, it sounds like. In any case, the woman's daughter is this young sheltered woman who's played by Deborah Kerr, which I found very ironic because Deborah Kerr was like a full-grown adult about 5 years earlier in the movie From Here to Eternity, which I referenced earlier here. She's like making out with like Burt Lancaster. And she's also in The King and I in a very adult role within, I think, a year of this movie. Speaking of Burt Lancaster, he's kind of the hero of this movie. He's kind of like the Gregory Peck from To Kill a Mockingbird. Instead of defending like the black person, he's defending a creepy guy. He's in a number of the movies in this series. He's pretty prolific and very good at what he does. I'm not sure why he didn't win an Oscar. Instead, David Niven, who played the creepy guy, won the Oscar. As for Wendy Hiller, I have the same problem. I don't think she really stuck out in such a large ensemble cast. her role is basically she's the proprietor of the inn, and she's one of two love interests to the Burt Lancaster character. But Burt Lancaster is a really good-looking guy, and I hate to be superficial, but she's not really in his league. And the other person is Rita Hayworth, who you might know from The Shawshank Redemption, which was originally called Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, where Andy Dufresne, the first time he meets Red, he asks for a poster of Rita Hayworth because she was like this bombshell. And so I have to conclude that I think that the award went to Wendy Hiller for reasons that might not have had to do with this specific movie. I don't know anything because I just watched the movie, and so my reaction is very raw, but a lot of times in ensemble movies like Cocoon or Airport or Shampoo, the award might go to someone for reasons outside of the scope of the film.
I love to love and I hate to hate, but it really doesn't matter because it's all the same.
On the subject of Shelley Winters, she certainly was a long-lived actress who was very bombastic. She wrote a memoir, and I even talked to a couple people who hung around her in Hollywood at one point, and they said she was just the life of the party. But on terms of the Diary of Anne Frank, okay, I haven't seen this, but in my defense, why would I want to? I saw the play when I was in 7th grade because my English teacher dragged us to the community theater, and then 2 years later in 9th grade, a neighboring English class was performing it, so another English teacher took us to it. So twice seeing the Diary of Anne Frank is enough. I think I've also read the book. Fortunately, there's a better opportunity to talk about Shelley Winters because she is one of only two actresses, I believe, who won this award twice. So in 1965, we'll have an opportunity to talk about her for a better movie. Stay tuned.
Oh, life with your shoulders in the mirror.
1960 is Shirley Jones for Elmer Gantry. And the funny thing is I've actually met Shirley Jones herself. About 9 years ago, she was giving a talk at the National Press Club, and in the meet and greet line, I was not thinking about doing this series, but I said, that movie, Elmer Gantry, you were talking about sounds great, I'm gonna go watch it. And embarrassingly enough, I actually never watched it. So Shirley Jones, somewhere out there, I apologize for disappointing you. But I am honored to share the tidbits that Shirley Jones gave with her speech. For instance, she is best known for three things. The first is the Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals Music Man and Carousel, which she played the lead of. In Music Man, she was Marion the librarian. She also talked about how she was the mom in the Partridge Family, and she acted alongside her stepson. And her stepson actually didn't know until the very first day of the set that his stepmom was going to be acting alongside her. Then she talked about the big film Elmer Gantry, which is about a Midwestern preacher who has wholesome values but really has some skeletons in his closet to hide. The interesting thing was that the agent called Shirley with the script and said, I think that if you take this part, you will win an Academy Award, which struck me as a bit crazy because, yes, we at home obsess about the Oscars, but I have a feeling it would be extremely unhealthy if the actors actually thought that way and planned out their careers accordingly. Also interesting was that Shirley Jones went into the Oscar ceremony expecting Janet Leigh to win for the film Psycho. I have a feeling that might not happen today, as 80% of the time everyone knows who's going to win because there are so many precursor awards and media coverage. Janet Leigh herself had a daughter named Jamie Lee Curtis who won the Oscar last month in this category.